Sharadava Nalalida Loka Pranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Pranaya Karuna Praptasya Kalyana Gurnanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Mahaprabhu ki Tana Nitya Gita Vaditramadhyam Manasura Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shringara Tanama Diramajanado Juktasya Bhaktamsya Niyunjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Chaturvedha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Satana Triptan Hari Bhakta Sangha Chaturvedha Shri Kripaiva Tripte Bhajata Shadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Shiradikama Tavayara Para Madhurya Leela Gunarupanamna Pratikchanasa Tanalalupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Ne Kunjayono Rati Kelisidhyai Jajali Veri Jokti Apekshaniya Tatrati daksha Otivalabhasya Bande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Sakshadharitena Shamasta Shashri Ruktastathava Vyataiva Sadhavi Kintu Prabodja Priya Eva Tasya Vande Gurashi Charanaravinam Vande Gurashi Charanaravinam Vande Gurashi Charanaravinam Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasada Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kotapi Yasya Prasadam Bhagavat Prasadam Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kotapi Dayam Stuvam Tasya Yasatri Sandhyam Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Dayam Stuvam Tasya Yasatri Sandhyam Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitina Mine Nama Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunavadi Patatarisha Tarine Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunavadi Patatarisha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Shri Chaitanya Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Tanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Jadavaye Namah Jadavaye Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Gopal Govindaram Srimadhusudam Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita Rishi Rupa Sanatan Vatara Guna Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasara Guna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Shri Radha Nila Madhava Radha Nila Madhava Radhe Jayo Jagannath Jayo Baladeva Jayo Subhadrama Jayo Sudarshan Chakra Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Sitaram Jaya Lakshman Hanuman Jayo Lakshmi Narasingha Jayo Lakshmi Narasingha Lakshmi Narasingha Jayo Prahlad Maharaj Netai Go Haribo 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 Netai Go Haribo Pramanande Haribo Jai Vishwapar Paramsa Prabhajakacharya Suttara Sri Sri Maharaj Divine Grace Abhacharavinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Pratishtha Bhiviti Samstapakachar Vaishnav Siramani Patita Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patita Udhar Ki Jai Shri Rup Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Dasa Guru Sat Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Namachari Srila Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai Nanta Guru Vaishnava Vrindi Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrindi Ki Jai Param Dayal Shri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai Jai Pramanam Sankirtan Eka Janaka Prem Purushottama Shri Sachinandan Shriman Gaurangas Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaura Hari Mahavrana Avatar Ki Jai Golokera Pramadhaninam Sankirtan Jaga Ki Jai Jogdharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai Brihatantanga Transcendental Book Distribution Seva Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopakuna Radha Kunsama Kun Giriraj Godhan Ki Jai Shri Vajabhum Vrindavan Maturdam Ki Jai Delosh Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhava Ki Jai शेष मायापुर नवद्वीप एक चक्र धाम की जय, परम करुण श्री गौर निताय की जय, श्री पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय, श्री जगन्नाथ स्वामी बलदेव प्रभु सुभद्रा देवी सुदर्शन चक्र भगवान की जय, भक्ति सब विघ्न विनाशन कनुष्ठिंगरे भगवान की जय, गंगा माय जमुना माय की जय, तुलसी महारानी वृंदी देवी भक्ति देवी की जय, श्री मथुरा दारानी की जय, समवेत भक्तवृंद की जय, निताय गौरी प्रमानंदे. All glory to the assembly bodies. All glory to the assembly bodies. All glory to the assembly bodies. All glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Prahlada Ladadayine. Hiranyakashipu Vaksha. Ito Narasimha Parato Narasimha. Yato Yato Yamitato Narasimha. Bahir Narasimha Hridaye Narasimha. Narasimha Madin Sharanam Prapade. Bhavakara Kamalavare Naka Adbhuta Shinha. Lalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubhima. Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare.
Lalita Hiranyakashipu Tanabhina. Kesavadita Narahari Rupa. जय श्री श्री भक्ति पद सर्वविघ्नाशन कनिसिंह हरे भगवान की जय। जय भक्त श्रेष्ठ प्रहलाद महाराज की जय। निताई गौर हरि प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। श्री वृंदाई तुलसी बाई प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रादे देवी सतभक्ताय नमो नमः। वृंदाई तुलसी बाई प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रादे देवी सतभक्ताय नमो नमः। वृंदायै तुलसी बाई प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रादे देवी सतभक्ताय नमो नमः। श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की।
Namo Namah Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namah
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namah
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namah
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namah
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Eya Vilasi
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 Shaitomara Sharanaloy Tara Vanchapurnahoy
Tomara Sharanala Taravantapuna
Kripa Kori Karotare Vrindavanavasi
Tumi kripa kari karatare Vrindavanavasi
Moraye Vilas Vilas Kunjariya
Moraye Yavila Vilasa Kunjadiyava
Nayane Haribasada Jugala Ruparasi
Aminayane Rivasara Jugala Ruparasi
Eni Vedana Daro Sakir Anugata Goro
Ene Vedana Dhara Sakirayano Gatakara
Sevadi Karadiye Koro Nijadasi
Sevayadi Karadiye Karadiye
Vina Krishna Govinda Preme Sadaya Navasi
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadaya Navasi
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadaya Navasi
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadaya Navasi
Yani Kani Cha Papani Brahma Tati Kani Cha Tani Tani Prana Shanti Pradakshina Pade Pade
Jani Kani Sapapani Brahma Hatari Kani Sa Tani Tani Prana Santi Pradatina Pari Pari
Yani Kani Cha Papani Brahma Tati Kani Cha Tani Tani Prana Shanti Pradakshina Pade Pade
Jani Kani Sapapani Brahma Hatari Kani Sa Tani Tani Prana Santi Pradatina Pari Pari
Yani Kani Cha Papani Brahma Jati Kani Cha Tani Tani Prana Shanti Pradakshina Pade Pade Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani
Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani.
Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda.
Nitya Haribo 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 Nitya Haribo
Nitai Gaura Haribo, Haribo, Shri Vrindai Tulasibai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradidevi Satavatai Namaha Vrindayai Tulasibai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradidevi Satavatai Namaha Vrindayai Tulasibai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradidevi Satavatai Namaha Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai Jai. O Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to return the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of his wishes fulfilled, bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also give me a residence in pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan. Thus within my vision I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of Kavadamsals of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own man servant. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna praise. May I always swim in love. Shri Radha and Govind. Shri Mati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shikhyastakam Ki. Cheto Darpanam Ajanam Bhavamadavam Nivapanam Shri Akariva Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyavadhu Anandam Vivardhanam Pradiparam Punavitasadanam Sarvatmasnam Param Param Vijayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Namakari Vaudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrarpita Niyamita Smarane Nakala Etadrishi Tava Kripaya Bhagavan Mamapi Durdhaiva Mideshamya Janina Nuraga Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Saishnana Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Adhanam na janam na sundarim Kavitamba jagarishaka maye Mama janmani janmanishari Bhavata bhakti rahitu kitvayi Vainandatan jaking karam Pritamam visame bhavam buddho Kripaya tava pada pankaja Stitaduli sadrisham vichintaya Nayanam galorashrudharaya Badanam gadgadharudaya gira Pulakaisitam babukara Tavanamagrahane bhavisati Yugaitam nimeshena Chakyusa pravasaitam Shunyaitam jagata sarvam Govinda virahiname Asli shabhapadaratam pinastumam Adarshana marmatam karotuva Jatatatthava viradatulam poto matpranatastu saivana para Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhyastakum Ki Namo Varanaya Prema Pradaya Krishna Krishna Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years, and extinguishes the fire of condition of life, repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large. God is present raised the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings. And as you have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda, in these transcendental names you have invested your transcendental energies. There is not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, we enable us to easily approach you by holy names. But I'm so unfortunate I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, think oneself lower and strong and street. One should be on a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, should be ready to offer respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your cause that it was from service, birth, or to birth. O son of Maharajananda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yes, some rather I'm falling in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, will my eyes will be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name.
When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your holy name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna is my Lord, and he shall remain so even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my conversible Lord, unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Siksastakam Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarne.
For the 18 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided, they are as follows. 1.
To blaspheme the devotees who dedicate their lives to propagating holy names to the Lord. Consider the names of demigods like Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the names of Lord Vishnu.
3.
To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literature in pursuance of the Vedic version.
5.
To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna as imagination.
6.
To give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord.
7.
To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord.
8.
To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in the Vedas as fruitive activities or karma kanda.
9.
To instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name.
And 10.
To not have complete faith in the chanting of the holy names and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success, Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just like desired trees that can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vanchakalpatarabhyascha, kripa sindhu bhyevacha, patitanam pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, namo namaha, Vaishnava Thakur ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhuti Samata Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tanamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Vicharani Visesa Sanyara Paskati Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraja Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 8, verse number 22. Yovanusayinam sarga pasandasya cha sambhava atmano bandhamoksho cha vyavastanam swarupata. Ya, all those. Va, either. Anusayinam, merged into the body of the Lord. Sarga, creation. Pasandasya, of the infidels. Cha, and. Sambhava, appearance. Atmana, of the living beings. Bandha, conditioned. Moksho, being liberated. Cha, also. Vyavastanam, being situated. Swarupata, in an unconditioned state. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Please also explain how, merged in the body of the Lord, living beings are created, and how the infidels appear in the world. Also, please explain how the unconditioned living entities exist. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. So this is continuing now. There's a very long, cascading litany of questions by Maharaj Pariksit that are extremely profound. One is more profound than the other, explaining how creation has taken place, explaining how people become conditioned to become imprisoned in the chain of karmic reactions, and thus having to take birth over and over again in the material world and suffer over and over again, birth, death, old age, and disease in the 4,800,000 and all the different species of life, over 4 million species of life. And also how one can be liberated from the cycle of birth and death, and how the three modes of material nature condition people, and time, and also the different types of sufferings of living entities, sufferings of this body, suffering caused by other bodies, suffering caused by natural cataclysmic events, and so forth. All these very astute, very erudite questions are being asked by Maharaj Pariksit. He wants to have a thorough understanding of the conditioned souls and how they got into this situation being conditioned and how they can get out. Also, he wants to know about the spiritual world. And so many questions about the spiritual world. Actually, the material world is only 1/4 of Krishna's domain. 3/4 are the spiritual world, and it's much. And most living entities that have emanated from Krishna are in the spiritual world. They never fell down. We are what you would call the prisoners, the ones who deviated voluntarily from the path of Krishna consciousness and from Krishna himself. And thus we are put into this prison house, which is the body and the whole material creation. These are prisons that limit us from the freedom of eternal transcendental bliss. And we're forced to have so-called mundane happiness, which is basically suffering. So if you take the time to read and then hear this spoken by genuine devotees, you will lose your attraction to the material world. And that doesn't mean you become lifeless and stationary and bored and no. You discover the spiritual world, which is much greater and world and has no downside to it. It's always dynamically expanding with infinite varieties of transcendental blissful activities. So yesterday we began to hear about that. We're going to review that verse and purport again. But let's read this purport because this is also very interesting. It says, "The progressive devotee of the Lord must inquire from the bona fide spiritual master how living entities merged in the body of the Lord again come back at the time of creation. So when it says merged in the body of the Lord, it's talking about Mahavishnu, or Kshirodaksha Vishnu, who is an expansion of Krishna, is in a sense non-different than Krishna, but the Vishnu avatars, which are Mahavishnu, Garbhodaksha Vishnu, and Kshirodaksha Vishnu, are for the manifestation, maintenance, and destruction of the material world. When I say destruction, nothing is ever destroyed. Everything is reabsorbed into the body of Mahavishnu and then waits until the next expansion. So our souls, as long as we're errant, in other words, we refuse to follow Krishna's instructions, we go through this birth, death, old age, disease, and then at one point the entire material universe is reabsorbed into the body of Mahavishnu, with Garbhodaksha Vishnu and Kshirodaksha Vishnu also being absorbed into the body of the Mahavishnu, waiting for the next time he exhales. So, and then all the universes exude or come out from the pores of his body, and there are billions of universes. We are only in one universe. There's billions of other universes. Each universe has 7 coverings to it, and each covering is 10 times bigger than the other. So we only see, and even scientists agree, we only see about 4 or 5% of the universe, because there's the sunlight. When you go to the beginning of the coverings of the universe, there's no sunlight there. So there are 7 gigantic coverings of this universe, and this is only one universe. There's billions of other universes, and many of them are greater than this one and more complicated than this one. So our perception of reality is extremely, extremely limited. Whether you use a telescope and look at the outer space, whether you use a microscope and look at microscopic, let's say, living entities, or you build a $4, $5, $6 billion cyclotron, or and you crack atoms, that are less than microscopic. You can't see the atoms. Then you crack atoms and see little lines of light, and then try and figure out what's going on there. We can't figure out what's going on in the ocean. We can't figure out what's going on in our body. We can't figure out what's going on in the universe, let alone figure out what's going on with atomic atoms, other than learning how to build atomic bombs that kill more people and faster. That's what they have accomplished. With E equals mc squared, they had the idea, and by the way, Einstein was pushing Roosevelt to build the atomic bomb. He was pushing him. So he's considered the father of the atomic bomb. It's not Oppenheimer and Fermi, but it's actually Einstein. Actually, if you want to get into cancel culture, he should be canceled because he caused the death of hundreds and thousands of people. Right. So anyway, we won't knock him down too much yet, but that's waiting. Okay, so it says, the progressive devotee of the Lord must inquire from the bona fide spiritual master how living entities merged in the body of the Lord again come back at the time of creation. There are 2 kinds of living entities. There are the ever-liberated, unconditioned living entities. So those living entities, which are in the majority, they're in the spiritual world. They never come to this material world because they're not attracted to anything material. But it is possible, even being in the spiritual world, that a person may become attracted to the material world. Just like it's possible, even for devotees, to, after many years in Krishna consciousness, be attracted again to something in the material world and fall down. You'll see. So nothing we're doing today, or everything we're doing today, is a microscopic, let's say, perverted reflection of what's in the spiritual world. And the original reason why we fell down from the spiritual world is something we're doing now also. When we go away from spiritual knowledge and practicing spiritual knowledge, because everybody has free will. At any time, you can decide to surrender to God, or you can decide to walk away from God. So, and Krishna is not going to stop you. We're not robots, because there cannot be love if we're robots. A robot cannot really love you, although it's programmed to say, "I love you, I love you." You know, it can say it a million times, but finally a person realizes it's just a robot. It's just a machine. It's not a real person. So Krishna did not make us into robots. We have limited free will. And at every moment of our life, we can decide either to come to Krishna or go away from Krishna. And Krishna is not going to stop us, because if that's what we want, that's what we get. Therefore, the phrase, man proposes, God disposes. So whatever we are desiring, even if it's something really bad, eventually, because it lingers in our mind and we can't stop thinking about it, eventually Krishna throws his hands up and says, okay, go right ahead and do it then. So anyway, we can't do anything without Krishna's help. We can't even move our finger like this without Krishna's help, see, because this is actually a very complicated movement, this finger. It requires a lot of coordination and internal, let's say, planning and technology for the finger to go like that. And sometimes people injure their hand, they can't move their finger. Or sometimes they injure their voice, they can't speak. Or sometimes they get an injury in a rib or a leg and they can't move, right? So you see there's the outside appearance of things, and there's the inside technology, let's call it, a type of construction of the body. And the body is fragile. Therefore, it's easy to injure the body, and then what we were doing, thinking it's normal, all of a sudden we can't even move our finger, right? Or we can't even speak, or we get paralyzed. So, of the ever-conditioned, so there's two types of living entities, the eternally liberated living entities, who are in the spiritual world, as well as the ever-conditioned living entities. Now, when it says ever-conditioned, that doesn't mean that we are cursed to never be able to go back to Godhead. It just means that we've been conditioned so long that it looks like we're ever conditioned. But at any moment, and this is what's a good thing, any moment, even the worst person in this world, if they decide to surrender to Krishna, Krishna will help them. So our approach to the spiritual world is not obstructed if we desire it. It's just a question of what is our desire. Right? So now there's two types of living entities, the ever liberated and the ever conditioned. So then it says, of the ever conditioned living beings, there are two divisions. They are the faithful and the infidels, the ones that have some faith that God may exist, and the people who ferociously or fanatically say there's no God. Like Einstein, he said, there's no God. Okay, so that was his problem, of course. He said, there's no personal God. He said, I believe in Spinoza's God, which is an impersonal God. Well, an impersonal God, meaning he's not a person, then how can you have a relationship with him? Because you're a person. So as soon as a person says, like Einstein, and like many Muslims say, and many Jews say, and some Christians also say, they say God is not a person. Well, that immediately obviates or stops any possibility of building a personal relationship with God. Now, of course, in Christianity, there's a personal relationship with Jesus, who is the Son of God. So it's a little more, it's more advanced than the Islamic and Judaic idea that God is impersonal. In other words, even the Muslims don't say he's impersonal. They say, we just don't know, because no information is in the Quran of his personal attributes. And the Jews, some Jews do believe that God is a person, and many of them think that you cannot, like the Muslims, you cannot really picture God in your mind, because either he's too great to conceive in our little mind, or he's so far away that we'll never be able to actually see him, but we can hear him. So in Islam and Judaism and in Christianity, they can hear God because they have their sacred scriptures, but they can't actually see him. So they don't have any information about what he looks like. The Christians have a little bit more information, and some Christians say that the Son of God, Jesus, is also a God, right? So, everything is all mixed up, and there are many different theories even in those religions. But in Krishna consciousness, there's a plethora, there's tremendous information about who God is, where he lives, what he likes, what he doesn't like, what he looks like. Therefore, we can make a deity of Krishna like we have here, because the description of his body, whether his original spiritual body as Krishna or Sham Sundar, the Tribhanga, the three-bending form holding the flute, or his form as Narayana, or his form as Vishnu. All those descriptions are there in the Srimad Bhagavatam and in the Vedic literatures. So, if you want to really know the science of God, you have to hear on a regular basis Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So here it says, now of the ever conditioned, there are two types. There are two categories, the faithful and the infidels. Of the faithful, there are again two divisions, namely the devotees and the mental speculators. Well, the mental speculators mean the Mayavadis, who claim God is not a person, but he is light, and that light is called the Brahma Jyoti. So they're speculating, and whenever a person speculates, they cancel something. So here the Mayavadis, because they are speculators, they cancel the personality of God. But it actually exists, but due to their speculation, it's just like the blind man who doesn't see the sun, and who's walking down the street with a friend of his who has eyes, and the friend says, "Oh, it's a beautiful day," and the blind man says, "Well, I don't believe it because I can't see it." Well, that doesn't mean it's not a beautiful day. It just means he is limited. That's all. His senses are limiting him from seeing. But a person who is seeing, they're not limited like he is, so they can see how beautiful the day is. So in the same way, the Mayavadis cancel the personality of Godhead. So the mental speculators desire to merge into the existence of the Lord or to become one with the Lord, whereas the devotees of the Lord desire to keep separate identities and constantly engage in the service of the Lord. So whenever there's love, there has to be two people. There has to be the lover and the beloved, right, to have a relationship. Now, someone can say, well, I don't believe God's a person, but I love the sky. Well, wait a minute. Can you love the sky in the same way you love your child? No. No, because like yesterday, someone brought their child, and they wanted me to hold their child, right? So I was holding the child, and they said, oh, look, he's smiling. Guru Dev is holding the child and smiling. So can the sky smile like a child and cause flights of ecstasy that the parents have, that seeing that their child is smiling at the child is only like 2 months old, but yet it's smiling, right? So we see loving the sky is not the same as loving your child or loving someone. So and therefore, yeah, you can have great appreciation for the sky, but you can't hug it. But you can cuddle the baby in your arms, and the baby can smile, and the baby can cry, and you cuddle it, and it can stop crying, and so many things, right? So the impersonal understanding is highly limited in its extent of or its reach, because you are a person and you're trying to relate to something that's not a person. It's not the same as relating to another person, and you can't really develop states of love simply worshiping something that is impersonal. There can be appreciation, there can be, let's say, peace or calm or things like that, but not different progressive states of love. And there are many progressive states of love And if you want to learn about that, you have to read The Nectar of Devotion, which explains in a scientific way all the different flavors of love that are expressed between devotees and Krishna. So now it says, the mental speculators desire to merge into the existence of the Lord or to become one with the Lord, whereas the devotees of the Lord desire to keep separate identities and constantly engaged in the service of the Lord. The devotees who are not fully purified, as well as the empiric philosophers, become conditioned again during the next creation for further purification. Okay, so now, of the faithful, there are two types. There's the speculator, and there's the person who has faith that Krishna is a person. And then of the devotees who have faith that Krishna is a person, but they are not fully purified, so they have to take birth again, and also the empiric philosophers. The empiric philosophers like Spinoza, they believe in some kind of a God, but it's impersonal, it's not complete knowledge. So people like that who have some faith, but don't have full knowledge, they have to take birth again and become conditioned again during the next creation for further possibility of purification, right? But there's no guarantee. They might become attracted again by something material and get distracted again. Such conditioned souls become liberated by further progress in devotional service to the Lord. So devotional service is progressive, and progressive with guaranteed certitude that whatever service you did before, the benefit of it is not taken away. It is the starting point in the next life for your purification. So this is one great benefit, and this is the second chapter, 40th verse. Nehabikramas nastosti pratijaya navidite swapam apyasya dharmasya chayate mahato bayat. This is a very important verse, second chapter, 40th verse, where Krishna says, O Arjuna, there's never any diminution of devotional service. Anything you do remains permanently part of your, or a permanent asset. So in the next life, wherever you stopped in the previous life, you begin from that point in the next life. Let's read exactly what it says. It says, in this endeavor, meaning devotional service, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. What's the most dangerous type of fear? After engaging some of your life or even all of your life in Krishna consciousness, to not be able to remember Krishna at the moment of death because you deviated, and you could take birth as an animal. How do we know this? Because Maharaj Bharata, who had attained bhava, the ecstatic state of contemplating Krishna, that's the bhava is the step right before prema, or attaining pure love for Krishna. He attained that very high, almost the pinnacle of devotional achievement, but he developed attachment to a fawn, which is a baby deer, whose mother was running away from a tiger that was chasing her, and she dropped the baby. She was pregnant. She dropped the baby and then jumped off a cliff and died. And the tiger was not interested in eating the baby, right? Because, you know, when a baby is born, it has all the placenta and all the blood and things on it. And, you know, the mother usually licks that away. But the tiger was not interested in it. And then Maharaj Bharata, who was meditating all the time and was right on the track to attain pure love of God, he got attracted to the fawn and began to care for it and became very attached. Just like, let's say you have a baby dog or cat or goat or something, you know, so you can cuddle it and it's completely dependent on you. So he became very, very attached to that little deer, and began to slacken in his practice of devotional service and his meditations and all these things. And after a little while, he became anxious about the deer because it was getting a little bigger. And sometimes he would go out of his ashram and he'd get extreme anxiety and he'd go out looking for it. And one day the deer was out somewhere in the forest lost, and he was going after it and he was thinking about it in great anxiety, and all of a sudden he died, thinking of the deer. You see how easy it is to get distracted, right? Now we have weapons of mass distraction like the internet and the cell phone and movies and radio and all these things. So then he didn't have all those things, right? But he still got distracted, right? So it's very easy for the human being to be distracted, especially today. So therefore, in this purport, it says in the second chapter, 40th verse, activity in Krishna consciousness, or acting for the benefit of Krishna, without expectation of sense gratification, is the highest transcendental quality of work. Let me read that again. Activity in Krishna consciousness, or acting for the benefit of Krishna, without expectation of sense gratification, is the highest transcendental quality of work. So what's the thing here that that's a little different than normal things that you hear? It says without expectation of sense gratification. So when you act for Krishna, for the benefit of Krishna, just like the pujaris are worshiping Krishna for his benefit, so also for their benefit, right? But it's mainly to please the Lord. This is the highest type of service, as long as there's no expectation of any material reward for the service. So this is what the gopis do. They, Srimati Radharani, she doesn't think that her body belongs to her. She is convinced that her body belongs to Krishna. And she wants to do everything with her body to please the Lord. Now, that's not the idea in the material world. Just like, when a woman believes that abortion is good, she says, the government has no right to get involved in my body. See, so she's thinking, this is my body, I'm the one that's in control of this, or should be in control of it. The government can't say anything to me what I do with my body. So if I want to kill my baby, they can't say anything. You see. So this is the difference between the ladies in the spiritual world and the ladies in the material world, or the men in the spiritual world and the men in the material world. People think, I am this body. I can do whatever I want with this body. If I want to kill this body, I'll kill it. If I wanted to do something else, some whimsical types of behavior, whatever, or perverted types of behavior, I'll do it. No one can tell me what to do with my body. But that's not the thinking or the mindset in the spiritual world. The gopis, as well as the gopas, the cowherd boys, they believe this body belongs to Krishna. So I should only use it in the service of Krishna for his pleasure. Now, because we are part and parcel of Krishna, if Krishna is going to be happy, we will be happy also, because we're more closely related to him than anyone else. Whether we are a demon or an infidel or a non-believer or a believer, because we are all part and parcel of Krishna. That's why everyone, even the worst person, has a chance to go back to Godhead, because that's where we were originally. But we, out of ignorance or out of becoming attracted by something glittering in the material world, we walked away voluntarily from Krishna. But our real position is to go back to Krishna. So the people that never fall down in the spirit from the spiritual world, they're the ones that are so enthralled and so attached to serving Krishna that they can't even turn their attention away from him for 1 second. Now, that's what happens when there's real love. See, so even in the absence of someone you love, you're always thinking of them, right? And you can't get them out of your mind, and you're always anticipating meeting that person again. Well, this is the condition of the people in the spiritual world. They're so enthralled with the beauty of Krishna, and the flute playing of Krishna, and the dancing of Krishna, and the eyes and facial expressions and hand expressions and bodily expressions of Krishna, they're just enthralled. They can't take their eyes off it. If you ever looked at medieval paintings of Christian paintings, especially of the Last Dinner of Jesus, everyone is looking at Jesus. So just look at a painting, you'll see. They can't. Everyone is looking at Jesus, and they're pointing at him in some way or other. So that is the spiritual world. But you can't really take your mind off of God because he's so attractive, and there's so much variety, and it's always increasing that you're never bored, and you're always excited and energized, and you don't have to reproduce. You don't have to get old. You don't have to get tired. You can eat if you want or not eat. It doesn't matter. All these things are going on in the spiritual world. We can't even imagine it. We have to begin to hear carefully Srimad Bhagavatam, where all these things are explained. So now Prabhupada says, the devotees who are not fully purified, as well as the empiric philosophers, become conditioned again through the next creation for further purification. Such conditioned souls become liberated by further progress of devotional service to the Lord. Maharaj Parikshit asked all these questions from the bona fide spiritual master, who was Sukadeva Goswami, in order to become fully equipped in the science of God. Fully equipped in the science of God. This is a science. Now what's interesting, let's go to Christianity again. The Christians, they also did a lot of canceling. So the cancel culture didn't start recently in America. They cancel, Civil War personality statues. Tearing down, Robert E. Lee's statue and tearing down this statue, and some of them want to tear down Jesus's statues in Catholic churches and so forth. But the Christians, they cancel the idea of reincarnation. They don't believe in it. They think you're only born once. Either you're saved by accepting Jesus, or you're finished. You're fried. You're burned to death, or you're eternally suffering in hell. So, but that's not the philosophy, and that's not the reality either. If you don't finish Krishna consciousness in this life, in the next life you begin from the point you stopped, or at least you're going to have a human body. And the whole purpose of the Shraddha ceremony is that if the person wasn't thinking of Krishna at the moment of death, then through the Shraddha ceremony, the relatives, or at least the son or the wife, or whoever's performing it, whoever's in relationship to that person, they offer their punya, their accumulated spiritual activities and the benefits of them to the person who's passed away. So at least they can get a human body and continue some progress in the next life. That's the whole idea of the Shraddha ceremony. So such conditioned souls become liberated by further progress of devotional service to the Lord. Maharaj Parikshit asked all these questions from the bona fide spiritual master in order to become fully equipped in the science of God. So yesterday's purport was all about the benefits of becoming Krishna conscious, and there are many of them. So we want to go over that a little bit more. So that verse says, Maharaj Parikshit says to Sukadeva Goswami, please explain unto me how the living beings are generated, how they are maintained, and how they are annihilated. Tell me also of the advantages and disadvantages of discharging devotional service unto the Lord. So he's going to talk about advantages and disadvantages. What are the Vedic rituals and injunctions of the supplementary Vedic rites? And what are the procedures of religion, economic development, and sense gratification? So now, we're in the second canto. When we start the third canto, when we come to the end of the second canto, all the questions are finished and the answers are only beginning. But when you go to the third canto, fourth canto, fifth canto, sixth canto, seventh canto, eighth canto, ninth canto, 10th canto, 11th canto, 12th canto, Every one of these questions are answered in full. You see? So the first two cantos are like an introduction, and many questions are asked. Now, Maharaj Pariksit is going to ask other questions too as we go through the rest of the cantos, but these are the preliminary questions that we need to understand before we can go to the higher understanding of what is exactly happening in the spiritual world. If we just jump to that, it's not recommended at all. It's recommended we go systematically, page by page, verse by verse. And then when we come to the 10th canto, then there's a huge explosion of what is pure love of Krishna. So, in this purport, there's a whole list of benefits of surrendering to the Lord. So, it says, but one can ply, or more or less navigate or travel, over the ocean of material existence by the grace of the Lord very easily. So in other words, that is actually a paraphrase of the verse, Daivihi esa gunamai, mama maya duratya, mam eviye prapadyante mayamitam tarantite, the 7th chapter, Bhagavad Gita, 14th verse, which says, Krishna says, this material energy of mine, and it belongs to me, he says, is gunamai, is impossible to overcome. You can't do it by nanotechnology. You can't do it by going to Mars with SpaceX. You can't do it by getting frozen, cryonics, freezing your body right before you die so they can unfreeze you in the future when they solve the riddle of death. You think you're going to be alive when they unfreeze you? Crazy things. You can't even make these things up. The reality is crazier than the fiction. That people actually think they're going to be alive when they're unfrozen in the future. This is crazy. It's Looney Tune stuff, right? But yet it costs $150,000 plus to be frozen in nitrogen in these different places. They have them in California and other places now all over the world. They freeze people. Of course, you have to be rich to get frozen, right? That proves that the rich people are some of the dumbest people in the world, right? So, the company that started it in California, they went bankrupt. Obviously, there was some cheating going on. And what happened? They couldn't pay the electric bills, so what happened? They pulled the plugs out because they weren't working anymore, and the people who paid for minimum $150,000 to be frozen for X amount of time until the scientists solved the problem of death. They were all frozen, and by the way, bingo, none of them were alive when they were unfrozen. You see, so the whole thing is nonsense, and everything has happened to prove that it's nonsense. Still people do it. Still people do it. Still people will put up the money to be frozen right before they die. Okay, so it says, but one can ply over the ocean of material existence by the grace of the Lord very easily without any fear of storm or fog. It all depends on the will of the Lord. No one can help if there is some unfortunate danger in the state of conditional life. The devotees of the Lord, however, cross the ocean of material existence without anxiety because a pure devotee is always protected by the Lord. So this is number one benefit. The pure devotee is always protected by the Lord. This is 9th chapter, 13th verse. Mahatmanam tamam parta daivim pakritim asritaha bhajanti ananya and madbhakta, so forth. So this is 9th chapter, 13th verse. Very important verse that says that the devotees are always working under the protection of the Lord. So, number one major benefit of becoming a devotee, the Lord will always protect you. Bhajanti ananya manaso gyatva bhutadim avyayam. O son of Prita Arjuna, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. Then it says, the Lord gives special attention to his devotees in their activities within the material conditional life. Okay, this is another verse, 929. Samo ham sarvabhute su name dvesostina priya. Ye bhajanti tumam bhakta mai te te suchapyaham. Ninth chapter, 29th verse. I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. I am equal to all. But whoever renders service unto me in devotion is a friend, is in me, and I am also a friend to him. This verse means that if you're not Krishna conscious, you come under the control of the devas and the laws of material nature, which are blind, right? There's no what you would call kripa there. It's just like if you put 50 cents in a Coke machine and you press the dial and nothing comes out. So you shake the machine, you press it some more, you bang the machine a little bit, still nothing comes out, and you get extremely frustrated. And then you go, Prabhu, please, either give me my Coke or let me get my money back. Now, do you think the Coke machine can give you any kripa? No, it's not possible. You don't get kripa from Coke machines or even material nature, because the laws of material nature are blind, right? And so you come under the control of the devas. But if you're a devotee of Krishna, then Krishna personally takes the responsibility of protecting you. This is the second big ticket item, a benefit. And then it says, one should know, therefore, from the expert spiritual master, the advantages and disadvantages of discharging devotional service, just as Maharaj Parikshit asked his spiritual master, Srila Sukadeva Goswami. According to Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the science of devotional service, one should not eat more than what is required, what he requires or he or she requires to maintain body and soul together. So yesterday, I was invited to someone's house, and they wanted me to give some career paths to their teenage kids. And I said, success in life begins by regulating your functions. And the two things are number one that have to be regulated are your eating and sleeping. If you don't do that, you're never going to be really successful. Because all successful people have learned that regulation of their basic needs, and what are the two basic needs? Eating and sleeping, right? And there's eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Those are the four animal propensities of every living being. So if you want to have any success in spiritual life, you have to regulate the eating and sleeping. In other words, you should go to sleep before 10 o'clock at night and wake up by 4 o'clock in the morning. And especially the Brahma Muhurta period, 3 hours before sunrise, is the most important time for making spiritual advancement. Okay? So if you cannot regulate, so there was a very famous man, his name was Gulbenkian. He was an Armenian guy, and he was the richest guy in the world right after World War I. Why was he so rich? Well, because he got 5% of the profit of all the oil that came out of the Middle East, including Iraq and all the other countries, Saudi Arabia, and all those countries, because he was a mineral engineer in the Ottoman Empire, in the government, and he oversaw all the research that was done by Western oil companies in the Middle East. So when the Ottoman Empire collapsed, he kept all that information, and then they didn't let the people that did the actual research keep that information, and therefore, in order to after the Ottoman Empire collapsed, and the Ottoman Empire was ruling all of the Middle East, even Egypt, right up to Morocco at one time. So then, therefore, they had to make a deal with him to get all that information that they collected, but they were not allowed to keep it. And therefore, he got 5% of all the oil coming out. Now, this man was very regulated. He had a scale, and every day he would only eat 1 pound of food, no matter what kind of food, but only 1 pound. So he would weigh the food and he would eat it. That's how rigorous he was, right? So only really, let's say, very, very high achievers, or if you want to be a high achiever, you have to regulate your eating and sleeping, and mating and defending also, but eating and sleeping because that's what you do every day, right? So, so that you don't throw off all the biorhythms in your body, you have to take rest before 10 o'clock. Now look that up. It's in the news also. You saw it the other day? Yeah, we read it. Okay. So even the scientists know that, right? Anytime you stay awake after 10 o'clock at night, it throws you off completely. And the second thing is you should not eat late at night. You should eat at least 4 hours, your last meal, 4 hours before you go to sleep, because it takes 4 hours to digest. This way you get a real sleep. If you eat, 9:30 and you go to sleep at 10 o'clock, right, you're not going to sleep well, and you're not going to digest well either. Okay? So these are just things that you learn through reading the Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, because Krishna wants you to be successful in your life. Success means at the moment of death, and even throughout your life, you're thinking of Krishna so that you don't take birth again in the material world. So it says here that one should not eat more than what he requires to maintain body and soul together. So Prabhupada has spoken a proverb. Maybe he got it from somewhere else. It says, a young boy or a young person cannot eat too little, cannot eat too much, and an old person cannot eat too little. So in other words, as you get older, your need for eating diminishes if you're enlightened. But a young boy or girl, they can eat as much as they want because they're still growing, right? So we have to learn to downsize eating, sleeping, mating. Mating should be completely eliminated after you have 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 children, and defending also. But especially eating and sleeping, these things should be very regulated and diminish as we go along in our life. And that way you have more energy and mental acuity. You don't deteriorate mentally, and you don't deteriorate so much physically by doing these things. Okay, so next it says, one should also not accumulate money to become puffed up in the material world. One should earn his livelihood easily and honestly, for it is better to become a coolie for an honest livelihood than become a great man in society by hook and crook. Well, almost every stockbroker is a hook and crook guy, right? Now, some of them get caught, like Madoff, and others don't get caught. But they're all inside traders, which means they use insider information to make money. That type of information you can't get unless you pay one of them to give it to you. Like, for example, recently, right before the COVID exploded, members of the Senate of the United States, which were on this particular committee, were briefed that this thing is going to happen very shortly, and is going to be very catastrophic for the stock market and for other things, because the whole normal working of society is going to be disrupted. As soon as that man, one of the men, senators, walked out of the room, he called his brother and said, call the stockbroker, tell him to sell everything. And they did, and they made a lot of money, or at least their stock portfolio was worth a lot of money, and they sold almost everything. So fast forward 2 years, in 2021, found out about it. That's illegal for him to use that insider information. It was, and they all have a vow of secrecy when they hear things like that, right? Because, you know, you can make a lot of money if you know what's going to happen. Just like bin Laden, he invested big in the stock market because he knew that 9/11 was going to happen, right? So he made a lot of money because even if one plane only succeeded, but not one plane succeeded, like 3 of them succeeded, the 4th one failed, right? So he was sure that one of them was going to succeed. So he invested. I mean, he's a wealthy man. He invested big in the stock market, you know, right before 9/11. So we see people who have money. When we say money, too much money. Like, for example, if you can earn hundreds of thousands of dollars every day, how much of that do you need for your livelihood? Not much. You know, even if you have you're a high roller, you might spend maybe $5,000 a day or $10,000 a day, right? Buying things that you don't need and eating too much and sleeping too much in special beds, whatever. So what about all the rest of the money? Because you made hundreds of thousands of dollars or $1 million. What are you going to do with it? So that should be used for Krishna consciousness. See? So that's the minimalist type of life. And it's very important that we understand this, because money, it's not that money corrupts, the love of money corrupts. When you're like overwhelmed with the greed, and you just want to keep increasing because you get prestige, you get puffed up, and people look up to you and get respect when you have a lot of money. Of course, when you lose all the money, nobody cares for you anymore. But so to not get puffed up like that, if you use that excess money in the service of Krishna, then you're blessed, and people appreciate it. So then next it says, there is no harm if one becomes the richest man in the world by honest dealings, but one should not sacrifice the honest means of livelihood simply to accumulate wealth. So the question of being an honest person is extremely important, right? And then you can make millions of dollars. Who cares? As long as you're not doing it illegally and you're using all the excess money in the service of Krishna. Such an endeavor is harmful to devotional service. One should not, so collecting more than you need, eating more than you need, having more sense gratification than what is prescribed by the Shastra, all these things lead to misery. And then it says, one should not talk nonsense. A devotee's business is to earn the favor of the Lord. Therefore, a devotee should always glorify the Lord in his wonderful creation and in his wonderful creations. A devotee should not decry or criticize the creation of the Lord, defying him by saying he has created a false world. Well, that's what the Mayavadis say. They say the whole world is false. But how can you say that? It's such a wonderful appearance of things, right? But we should not be fooled by it because it's temporary. You see, the doctrine of illusion is different for the Mayavadis and for the devotees. The Mayavadis say the whole material world is false. The devotees don't say the material world is false. How can you say it's false when you need food, you need water, you need heat, you need light, all these things that you're getting to sustain your body? So it's not false. But thinking that I can find a permanent situation in the material world, that is false. Because the body is temporary and the material world itself is only temporarily manifested. So that is the real illusion. It's not that the world is an illusion, as the Mayavadis say. It's the idea that I can, by science, by cryonics, by this thing or that thing, I'll have a robot build exactly looking like me, and I'll download my brain into the robot. And then Igor XYZ in Belarus will hack your robot, and you'll end up in a junk pile. So that will happen also, just like they can do that. They can hack cars with computers nowadays, and they can hack the robots also in the future. They're smarter than the guys that make the programs, right? Well, anyway, there's no strategy that will work to make a person and their body immortal. So even trying to do it is a waste of time and money. Why try to do something that's impossible? Therefore, do the possible. The possible is you can surrender to Krishna and go back to Godhead easily, simply by chanting, dancing, and feasting, and hearing Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So why try and do something that's impossible, like get your body frozen before you die and wait and hope that they'll solve the riddle of death in the future, or go to Mars on SpaceX, hoping that you have an environmentally clean atmosphere and environment there, because the Earth is getting contaminated every day, and we won't be able to live here anymore because there's too much carbon dioxide in the air. Hey, come on, this is all crazy stuff. You think you can exist on Mars? It's impossible, right? Who knows if you can even go there, So, but yet people believe this nonsense. Okay, so then, and we should not criticize Krishna or the material creation. The world is not false. Factually, we have to take so many things from the world for our maintenance. So how can we say that the world is false? Similarly, how can one think of the Lord as being without form? How can one become formless and at the same time have all intelligence and consciousness, direct and indirect? So there are many things for a pure devotee to learn, and he should learn them perfectly from a bona fide personality like Sukadeva Goswami. So we studied this yesterday, but it's good to go over it. And now there's more. The favorable conditions for discharging devotional service are that one should be very enthusiastic in serving the Lord. The Lord, in his form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, wanted the cult of devotional service to the Lord to be preached all over the world, in every nook and corner, and therefore a pure devotee's duty is to discharge this order of preaching as far as possible. Every devotee should be very enthusiastic, not only in performing his daily rituals of devotional service, but in trying to preach the cults peacefully by following in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya. If he is not superficially successful in such an attempt, he should not be deterred from the discharge of his duty. Success or failure has no meaning for a pure devotee, because he is a soldier in the field. Preaching the cult of devotional service is something like declaring war against materialistic life. There are different kinds of materialists, such as the fruitive workers, mental speculators, the mystic jugglers, and so many others. All of them are against the existence of Godhead. They would declare that they are themselves God, although in every step and in every action they are dependent on the mercy of the Lord. So this is a fantastic purport. There's still more to it, but we're going over it to remind us of the wonderful things we heard yesterday. And these are all benefits. Even when it says you should not eat too much, that's also beneficial information to help you advance in Krishna consciousness. So there's things you should do, and there's things you shouldn't do. Both things are beneficial if you follow them. So when it says advantages and disadvantages, eating less is not a disadvantage. It's actually a virtue. So more people have died by overeating than undereating in this world. And as we said yesterday, there is an epidemic of obesity in the United States right now. It's up to 50% of people are obese. So understanding what's being said here is extremely important if one wants to be a devotee. So we'll stop right there. Are there any questions?
In the following chapters, some things that Prabhupada mentioned, like the Nikisiddhas, they're all being answered by Sukadeva Goswami.
Yes. Every one of these questions is going to be answered in depth. That's why there's 10 more cantos after this. It's a thorough explanation of the science of God. And it is science. And everything is explained. How you eat, how you sleep, how you mate, how you defend, and how you attain perfection in life through and love for God. Everything is explained in detail. Who is God? What's going on in the spiritual world? Everything. Okay, you have a question?
Yeah, Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, you have explained in 2.40 the most dangerous type of fear.
Is
To
to
forget
take birth as an animal
and
after
forgetting
having the human form of life. Very dangerous.
and forgetting Krishna at the time of death.
Yeah.
And you gave the example of Bharat Maharaj. So he was very
There are
elevated.
many other examples, right? That's one that's in the scripture that you can read about. Go ahead.
Yes. So even he was so elevated and he got attracted to fawn. So how a neophyte will remember Krishna at the time of death?
Okay. Let's say you want to learn the violin. So in the beginning, you become a scratch-a-doodle, right, with your bow, right? But if you keep practicing and keep getting trained by the teacher, eventually you're playing Bach's Fifth Symphony on your violin, right? So practice makes perfect, and no practice means no perfection. So we're practicing every day by hearing Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. We're practicing every day by chanting our rounds. We're practicing every day by preaching. We're practicing every day by eating prasadam. We're practicing every day by distributing prasadam. You see? So if you just keep doing these things, eating, chanting, dancing, hearing, preaching, and so forth, you will remember Krishna at the moment of death. And Krishna guarantees that even if you don't remember him, but having passed a life like that, he will not forget. He will not forget. You see. So the prayer that we should say when we're approaching death is Vayuranilam amritam atedam basmantam sariram om kratusmara kritam smara. My dear Lord, now that the breath of my air is going to merge into the universe and my body is going to merge into the soil, please remember everything I have done for you, dear Lord. Now, if you did nothing, there's nothing for Krishna to remember. But if you did a lot, then Krishna is not going to forget you. Even if you're, let's say they gave you some morphine right before you died because you were having pain and you're completely zonked out of your brain, right? But Krishna is not going to forget. So he's the super cloud. You understand? There is the bigger cloud, right? The Microsoft or Amazon, their cloud is there, but it's nothing compared to the super cloud. That's Krishna. Okay, thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Everybody's thinking, oh, if I become Krishna conscious, what's going to happen? I just chant Hare Krishna all day long. How am I going to get money? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? Blah, 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 blah. They're all worried. Don't be worried. You will be more successful by being Krishna conscious than before. Much more successful in every way, materially and spiritually. You want to chant?
Jayo Prabhupada, Jayo Prabhupada, Jayo Prabhupada, Jayo Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jayo Prabhupada,
Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala
Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Vandamui Savadana Mate
Vandomui Savadana Mate
Jahara Prasade Bai E Bhava Toriya Jai
Janara Prasade Bai He Bhavatoriya Jai
Krishna Prapti Ho Jai
Krishna Prapti Hoya Hoite
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitite Koriya Kya
Janara Prasade Mai E Bhavatoriya Jai
Arnagor Nakori Ho Mane Asa Guru Charane Rati Aise Utama Gati
Guru Mukha Bhakti
Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asha Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asha
He Prasade Pure Sarvasa
चक्षुदान दिलो रे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
Chakshudana Lila Jai Janme Janme Prabhu Se
दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो
Divya Jnani De Prakashito
प्रेम भक्ति चाहते अविदा विनाश जाते
Deve Bhakti Bhavate Avidya Vinasa Jate
वेद गाय जहरा चरियो
Janaracharito
श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदम जनारा बंधु
Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adana Janara Mandru
लोकेनाथ लोके राजीवाना
Lokanath Lokera Jivana
आहा प्रभु कोरो दया दे हो मोरे पाद छाया
Aha Prabhu Kora Doya Deya More Padachaya
ए बेटा सुश्री भुवाना
Emeyas Suchi Bhuvana
जय प्रभु पदा प्रभु पदा जय प्रभु पदा
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine
Nama Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pasyatya Deshatarine
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pasyatya Desatarine.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Rishi Radha Nila Madhavrada
Radha Nila Madhavrade
Nittai Gaura Haribol Nittai Gaura Haribol
Nittai Gaura Haribol Nittai Gaura Haribol Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajika Tatara Shishimad. His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Sil Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Shri Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Vasudhi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sam Kunda Radha Kundi Girigil Dan Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Dan Ki Jai, Shri Mayapura Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Ganga Maya Ki Jai, Jamuna Maya Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Patita Pavana Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Putali Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamini. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachari Namely Visesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatani Jai Shri Krishna Bhagavan Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Putali Shrimati Bhakti Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Visesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatani. The lotus feet. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection and fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him, ecstatic Brahma emanates. By him, ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic cultures sing of his character. Our spiritual master of the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor and Lord and master of devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread throughout all the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada, Patita Bhavani Ki Jai. Namah Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Buddhi Sumata Bhakti Swamata. Namaste Saraswati.